adventurers? Welcome to Guiding Bolt Gaming. I'm Jessica and today we're going to be discussing traps in D&D. Done well, traps can add depth, intrigue, and excitement to your adventures. Done poorly, and traps become a tiresome nuisance that can slow the game to a grinding halt. Let's dive into a number of tips and tricks to make your traps the best they can be for your PCs. Up first, to ensure your traps have a cause. All of your traps should be thought out and included for a specific reason, not just picked at random and plopped willy-nilly into your campaigns. Think about the type of trap you want and where it will be located. What is the goal or purpose of it? Remember that traps are expensive and time-consuming to create. No one puts traps everywhere. They put them where they will do the most good or harm, depending upon your perspective. For example, it could be a way to alert the goblin camp of intruders so reinforcements can be sent. It could be a way to guard an important relic. Or it could be a way to slow down the escape of trespassers. Whatever it is, make it meaningful to the story the adventurers are in. A trap with no apparent reason for being there quickly leads to annoyed players who become overly wary. Building off of that, a trap should not only have a cause, but it should also fit narratively into the campaign. A trap should make sense within the setting it's a part of. A stone axe wielding goblin likely isn't going to have a repeating flamethrower trap. That's a bit outside their pay grade. If you pair these two things up, there should be a good reason for that, and that something should be discoverable to the PCs, whether it's another plot hook or simply another piece of lore that builds on the world you've constructed. Maybe the creator of the trap is an NPC that the PCs can encounter and interact with. If the PCs are persuasive enough, they might be able to glean some helpful information about later traps. Maybe a trap that has a block that drops from the ceiling reveals a hidden carving that details the deity behind the temple. Or perhaps a portcullis that drops down has a map of the dungeon hidden in the pattern of its bars. Be creative and use traps to build on the adventure story. Third, all traps should have a countermeasure. There must be another way to deal with a trap in addition to simply triggering it. Think back to our first point about making sure your traps have a cause. This will help you determine alternative ways the PCs can defeat the trap. Remember, when someone builds a trap, they need a way around it themselves, even if it's just so they can get out after they finish arming it. Consider things like visual clues, hidden switches, or tiny details that only the creator would know to look for. These sorts of things are like an admin password, so to speak. Remember how we talked about alluding to big bad enemy actions during combat videos? The same holds true for traps. Gotcha moments start to grate on players and make things unfun. If they're worried about triggering traps with every little step they take, the game is going to come to a grinding halt as they carefully test every little square they step into or door they want to open. Your goal as the DM should be to try to warn players about upcoming traps. Maybe they come across one that's already been sprung with a corpse in it. This allows your players to examine the trap carefully to learn about it. Or perhaps you place a trap as part of the first encounter in a new area. The trap goes off, but you know the players will survive, and they'll have the option to retreat in order to heal or regather their thoughts if they wish to. Or, upon triggering their first learning trap, maybe you give them a split moment to react. Maybe they hear a click when they step on the pressure plate, and you immediately ask them, what do you do? Whether that's jumping back, dropping prone, or rolling forward, or whatever else they may come up with, in that first introduction, you give them a chance to possibly avoid the trap depending on their reaction. Either way, the trap won't kill them, and they can chalk this first encounter up to a learning moment or as a trigger to probe a little more. And rather than place traps in random or unexpected spots, you should instead establish a pattern for the trap. It may take the characters a little bit to catch on, and it will require some investigation on their part, but have clues ready to be revealed and pieced together. Our goal is to empower our players to be able to guess where a trap is located. Maybe the party is exploring an ancient building that was once the home of a grand emperor. Once the emperor passed, it was tradition to turn the throne room into a burial chamber and seal the palace off with all the rulers' riches and wealth to aid them into the afterlife. To prevent grave robbers, the palace was rigged with traps prior to being sealed. Maybe these traps include pressure plates that can be found within the floor of mosaic-tiled rooms. The tile pattern includes repeating rings of various colors. The center spot of the blue-orange rings contain the trap triggers, while the blue-yellow and blue-red spots are safe. At first, the party may start to fear rooms with mosaic-tiled floors, but if they take the time to investigate the rooms, the colored rings in the floor pattern may be revealed, and they may also notice that a little more dust has seemed to accumulate around the center tile of the blue-orange rings because those tiles are a little higher than the others due to them hiding pressure plates. With my example, you'll notice that I have a couple layers of details. The rooms with mosaic tiled floors is the detail that warns that there could be a trap if they pay attention to the flavored text. The colored rings of tiles is a second layer of detail that gives a more specific answer and makes it really easy to guess where the traps are. This layer of detail is the one the players have to ask and investigate about. They have to stop and purposefully examine things. This method of creating traps teaches your players that you will reward them for being attentive and smart. Once you've determined the rules for your trap and have allowed the players a chance to encounter a trap and learn about it, it's then your job to figure out more interesting and challenging ways to use the trap. Consider what would happen if a monster were to chase the party through the Emperor's palace. Will the party remember to avoid the blue-orange rings? Will they try to lure the monster into setting the trap off on itself? What happens if the party finds itself locked in combat with the fire elemental that spends half the combat trying to trigger the repeating flamethrower trap to power its own self up? Sounds like some fun scenarios to me. Next, do not design traps that make the players' preparations or individual PC choices meaningless. If your players have armed themselves appropriately for invading some evil fire-wielding demon's lair within a volcano, that fire lair better not have ice traps. Sure, you can maybe come up with some excuse to justify it, but I'd recommend rewarding the players for their smart choices and preparation and deal up some sweet fire-based traps instead. The same goes for designing traps designed to defeat specific PCs. If a player rogue has chosen to devote time and resources to make their character better at dealing with traps, don't punish them by making the traps more difficult to overcome. Let their choices be meaningful. Another fun thing to do is to allow the entire party the ability to interact with the trap. And I don't just mean the ability to set off the trap or only the rogue having the ability to disarm it. Maybe the wizard can do an arcana check to discover a secret panel hidden by an illusion. Or the barbarian can use their strength to hold a trapdoor open. You can allow the PCs the ability to reset the trap to then be used on their own enemies, or the option to use the traps to their advantage during fighting. Again, let the PCs flex their various abilities and creativity. Also consider what the trap is doing. It doesn't have to be a one and done, or a trap that directly deals damage. Traps that change the environment or provide choices engage the whole party in a different way, whether that's a drop portcullis that splits the party in two, or a drop pit that now blocks the party's exit, or a locked room that begins to fill with water. As an aside, these types of indirect traps are the exception to our allude to the trap rule. The party could detect them ahead of time and disarm to avoid them, but the traps themselves present options and a problem to be solved as opposed to a single direct outcome. Because of that, they don't have to be given away. The next thing you should avoid is to make traps that instantly kill players or completely take them out of the combat action. If you want to make your traps more fearsome, having them instantly kill a player with no warning is not the right way to go about it. I refer you to the previous tips we've discussed. Gotcha traps are lazy on your part and are no fun for the players. In the same vein, don't create a giant greased pit trap that will cause a PC to sit out of the battle if they happen to slip in because they have no way of climbing out and their comrades are pinned down in the fight. This should be a time of excitement and teamwork for the players, not a time for them to sit there bored and likely fuming because they're stuck in a hole with no way to participate. If you haven't introduced a trap prior to combat, giving the players a chance to investigate, understand, or expect it, then it does not belong in combat. I'll remind you again, empower your players to allow them to counterplay with the trap. Don't trick them with gotchas. Finally, make sure you reward players. It doesn't matter if they get past, through, or around a trap with a single die roll or clever idea. Give them the experience points for it. Not doing so is like withholding XP for a battle that lasts a single round. It may not feel like the party earned the experience because they got lucky, but it feels like a win for them. Don't take that away. Remember, traps are supposed to have countermeasures. Don't punish the party for figuring one out and using it. To summarize, your trap should have a cause, fit into the larger campaign narrative, have countermeasures, have clues or patterns that allude to them, present opportunities for different party members to interact with them, not instantly kill or take players out of combat, offer experience points no matter how they are overcome, and should not be made more difficult to counteract player choices. Which tip did you find most useful today? What's one of your favorite traps you set up or encountered within a campaign before? Let me know down below in the comments. I'm always looking for new ideas to implement. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. We put out new content to help D&D players every Saturday. Until next time, happy trap planning!